Are you looking for relevant ways to increase engagement in your classroom? To facilitate activities in impactful ways that promote social-emotional development? Well, stay tuned for one of the best tools on the planet to do exactly that. I'm Kemi Joseph, and in this video series, we give you the best tools to engage and empower your students. Today, I'll be providing an overview of the Experiential Learning Model, or Experiential Model for short. We consider this to be the world's greatest engagement engine. Since this tool is so powerful, you can find it in almost every teaching setting, from classrooms to corporate level trainings. Put it this way, any workshop or professional development training that you've been to and enjoyed is probably using this model. In fact, the Experiential Learning Model is the engine behind most of your current programs and interventions. But the craziest thing is that most educators still don't know about the Experiential Model, even though they're using some variation of it. Therefore, learning this tool alone can save you a lot of time, money, and stress. Because instead of rolling out or buying a new program, you can use this engagement tool to supercharge your engagement and SEL development within your current programs. I'm really excited to share this. But before we jump in, let's talk a little bit about the research. The research on experiential learning dates back to the early 1900s with contributions from several researchers and most notably Kolb. The model is called experiential learning to emphasize the major role that experiences play in the learning process. This is further reinforced by Edgar Dale's Cone of Experience, which states that students learn more from direct purposeful experiences than they do from verbal symbols alone, like lectures. Finally, if we take a moment to think about the prefrontal cortex, which controls executive functioning, including decision making, complex planning, and other vital social-emotional skills that we need to be well-adjusted human beings, research shows that the prefrontal cortex develops for most people around age 25 and 26 in a normative brain without trauma. So given that most K-12 educators are not working with students aged 25 or 26, we must keep in mind that our students have yet to fully develop their prefrontal cortex. This is why they have issues with impulse control and emotional regulation. This is also why when they do something impulsive and we ask, "Why did you do that?" they usually say, "I don't know." In a lot of cases, they actually don't know. And no, this is not an excuse. This is a call to action. We must help them develop their prefrontal cortex. In order to do that, we must engage them in experiences that propel their learning and ask them questions that help them make relevant meaning of that learning. This is where the experiential model comes into play. As I mentioned, there are several variations throughout the years. This is one that we created with our partners at One Circle Foundation and Why Try to make this process as simple and straightforward to implement as possible. There's also a PDF link with this information below so you can follow along. Our version of the experiential model has 5 F's to help you remember the process. The first step is to facilitate an experience, or what we call a developmental activity. Then you ask a series of reflection questions that move students' thinking from surface level to deeper using those 5 F's, which are facts, feelings, findings, funnel, and future. Let's dive a little deeper. The experience section states, engage students in a relevant and meaningful developmental activity. First off, anytime we're facilitating an activity, we must ensure that it's relevant to our topic and helps our students develop skills in meaningful ways. As you can see at the top, a developmental activity can be anything that propels discovery, like team challenges, field trips, puzzles, videos, math problems, quotes, etc. It's important to notice that the experience is the smallest portion of this pie. So for those of you who are concerned about time, this whole process can take as little as 5 to 7 minutes, and it can have a powerful impact on your students. Once we complete the activity, we transition to the reflection section. We start by discussing the first F, facts. To do so, we ask questions that invite students to share behavior-specific observations. This is to ensure that we get a full picture of the experience from the different perspectives. For example, we might ask, what did you notice about our class during that activity? Some common answers may include, we noticed that everyone was participating, we worked together, we noticed that it was harder than we thought, or that we had to collaborate to do it right. Notice at the bottom of the fact box it says, Leaders listen to and reflect back what students shared before moving on. You are the leader in this example. This is a reminder to all of us to practice active listening so we can value our students' input. Listening and reflecting back also allows other students to hear what their peers are sharing, which further supports their social-emotional development and that prefrontal cortex. So please be sure to practice active listening throughout this process. Once we're done with the facts, we move on to the second F, feelings. In this section, we invite students to explore the emotions that surfaced and the ways that they were expressed. If we truly want to help our students develop their social-emotional skills, then we have to specifically talk to them about their emotions. In this section, we might ask a more targeted question such as, what were some moments of frustration during that activity, and how did we respond during those times? Or we might ask a general question such as, what emotions came up during that activity? At that point, we listen to their answers and ask them to elaborate more on how they manage those emotions. Each option has a valid application and will depend on your student's level of awareness and your learning objectives for the lesson. Either way, we listen to and reflect back what students are sharing before we move on. Then we move on to the third F, which is findings. Asking questions that invite students to connect their insights back to the learning objectives. This is our favorite question of them all and can be considered the most important of the 5 F's because it asks students to draw a bridge between the activity and the learning objectives. This is where they make the most meaning as well. In general, our students are asking, why are these classes important? Why does this matter? Or how is this relevant to me? That can be frustrating sometimes. As we explore the findings in each lesson, we create the environment where students can answer those questions themselves, which makes it more impactful. If we're teaching them about social-emotional learning, for instance, the question might be, how does this relate back to those social-emotional competencies? If we're teaching them about our school expectations, then the question might be, how does this relate back to our school expectation of respect? If we're teaching them about a specific subject or content area, we might simply change the question to fit that content area. For example, how does this activity relate to our reading assignment? How does this relate to solving complex math problems? How does this relate to our current science project? Either way, in this section, we want to explicitly ask students to make those connections. Again, we listen to and reflect back the responses before moving on to the next section. Now we move into the fourth F, funnel. A funnel generally takes information and channels it in one direction. Therefore, in this step, we do our best to summarize what students have shared, emphasizing the common threads and connections to our learning objective. This is where all that active listening in the other sections pays off. This recap also helps our students ensure they remember the richness of our conversation and primes them to answer the final question in a meaningful way. The final F is future. In this section, we ask an application question that invites students to intentionally apply what they've learned to their lives. For example, we might ask, what is one thing you're willing to do in the next week as a result of this activity? Notice, the question allows students to choose one thing that they will commit to in a specific time frame. This empowers them to practice self-awareness and decision-making by choosing something that works best for them. The time frame helps make it manageable and increases the sense of accountability. If you set a time frame, it is certainly beneficial to follow up with your class to see how well they did. Another version of the future question is, what is one thing you're willing to do differently next time you're in this kind of situation? Which still encourages them to choose one new behavior or thought process for a similar situation in the future. Either way, it's important to allow them to choose what they want to do for themselves, knowing that each student would choose something different. Those are all the steps of our experiential learning model, which starts with an experience that is followed by the 5 F's: facts, feelings, findings, funnel, and future. Again, this is intended to be a simple overview. In our staff trainings, we go more in depth and give you opportunities to practice facilitating developmental activities with this model. That way you can apply this directly to your current initiatives and programs. In the PDF you downloaded, we provided you with sample questions for each of the 5 F's. We also provide you with a template to outline questions for your next developmental activity. Click here for a link to our social emotional facilitation manual, which takes us all a step further by providing you with 16 activities that you can use as a launching pad for incorporating the experiential model into your lesson plan. We certainly encourage you to utilize this engagement engine as often as you can, because it would truly supercharge your student engagement and social emotional development in your current programs. Now, if you find this video useful, please share it with your colleagues as well, because the more of us using the experiential learning model, the better our schools will be for both our students and for us as educators. If you have any questions or you want to bring us in for staff trainings, please contact us by visiting youareawesome.org. Either way, we thank you very much for investing in your ability to engage and empower your students. Educators like you truly make a world of difference. So we look forward to connecting again soon. In the meantime, keep up the great work.